Today's video is going to be a review of the Lim 575 watt meat grinder. Now, about 2 years ago I received a gift certificate from Academy Sports, and at the time I didn't have a meat grinder, and I decided I wanted to give the Lim grinder a try. After all, if it wasn't any good, I really wasn't out any money because I was using a gift card. The Lim 575 watt grinder is their low-end, entry-level meat grinder. It's advertised as the grinder to get if you're going to process 1 to 2 deer a year. And it usually sells for about $100 or so. You can get it cheaper when it's on sale. Being a low-priced grinder, the housing is plastic, the gears inside of it are plastic, and the knives that come with it are really less than desirable. But now that I've got 2 years on this grinder, I wanted to give it a review. This grinder is perfectly serviceable, and it will give you a lot of meat as long as you use it within certain limits. And let me say that again, as long as you observe some limits. Now, I've got a friend who has one of the high-end Cabela's grinders. They're night and day really as far as capability. I believe his Cabela's grinder would grind bones if you threw them in. The Lim grinder, on the other hand, it takes a bit of care to use. In order to get the most out of this grinder, you want to make sure you observe the following suggestions. Number one, you need to trim your meat well. This grinder doesn't have the strength of bigger grinders, and a lot of sinew on your meat will cause the grinder to bog down. So you need to trim your meat well. Make sure it's clean. Number two, you need to cut your meat into small chunks or strips. Now, this grinder throat is narrow. You can't force large pieces of meat down the throat. It won't work. Perhaps the most important thing though is rule number 3, and that is replace the knives. The knife blade that comes with this grinder is fairly dull and it doesn't hold an edge well. I don't think it's made out of good steel. Now, you can buy replacement knives of much higher quality for about $8 a piece. And this single thing will do more to make you happy with this grinder than anything else. A good sharp knife is mandatory for a weak grinder. A dull knife will only cause you grief. Number 4, sharpen your knife regularly. You sharpen it by placing it flat on a stone and rubbing it back and forth. You also need to take the grinding plate, that is the plate with the holes in it that the meat comes out of, and do the same for that on both sides. Having the grinding surfaces true and sharp makes a world of difference with this little grinder. I sharpen my blades at least once a season. If you follow these simple suggestions, you can grind enough meat with this grinder to feed your family. I know I've done it for the last 2 years. This grinder is not a professional grade grinder. It's a cheap, low-end grinder, but when used within its limits, it will work, and it'll work just fine. So let's take a look. Okay, I've got about 20 pounds of my venison that I'm going to grind into burger. I've mixed it with 2 pounds of bacon ends, and this is just a rough mix. So I've got it all mixed up. You want this as firm as possible without being frozen. So this has been in the deep freeze for a few minutes to firm it up a little bit. And I'm going to put it through my grinder. This is going to be kind of loud, but this little grinder does a pretty good job. So let's see what it looks like here. Okay, that took just a few minutes, and what we have here is 22 pounds of high quality venison bacon burger. This is ready to be packed and go into the freezer. I like 1 pound packs. That just makes it easier to measure out quantities, and that way you don't have to thaw out a whole bunch if you only need a little bit. But the bacon really is the secret. It adds a lot of flavor, a lot of good flavor, without overpowering it. And the good thing is you have complete control over the production process. You know exactly what went into your burger. You inspected every piece, you trimmed every piece. Anything that you didn't want or you thought was suspect gets tossed. And my dog is down there. She's not on camera, but she loves venison trimming time. She always makes out pretty good at that time. But this is really great meat, and you can do this not only with venison. I do it a lot with beaver. It's just more work with beaver. It takes more. You have more time spent boning out the meat because there's not as much meat on each piece, whereas on a deer, you know, the hams are much bigger, so you get a lot more meat per minute spent boning out. But either way, it's good stuff, and just goes to show that you don't have to be dependent upon the store, you don't have to be dependent upon the government, and you can make a superior quality product for yourself at home. So anyway, let me get this inside, and I'm gonna wrap it up and get it in the freezer, and that'll be done.